She sat silently in the car, hands resting on the wheel, eyes staring through the misted glass. A Monday morning like any other, except she had cried the night before. Quietly. No one knew, and this morning, though her heart remained heavy, she still drove to work, still walked into the office, still smiled at her co-workers. No one knew, but that doesn't mean she was weak. Sometimes just continuing on even with a broken heart is already a victory. We live in a world obsessed with noise. Everything demands to be shared, counted, liked, seen. But the Stoic pays no mind to appearances. They don't ask, "Did anyone notice?" They ask only one thing: are you living true to yourself? Marcus Aurelius once said, "True victory is not found in the eyes of others, but in your own state of being." When you keep going, maintain your dignity, stay resilient, even when no one sees, when there is no applause, when the world outside seems not to care, that alone is triumph. Every breath you take in the morning is a win. Every time you choose calm over reaction, hope over despair, you are writing a new chapter in the story of becoming yourself. And that kind of victory no one can ever take from you. Let us go deeper into that. 1. You're winning if you're still here. There are days you open your eyes and feel no drive to leave the bed. Your body is tired, your mind is clouded, and your heart still bears scratches from days gone by. On days like that, if you don't run away, don't give in, don't turn off your phone and shut the world out, then you've already won. You're living in an age where everything is defined by performance. You must look successful, look fine, look like you're rising above it. But the Stoic sees it differently. To them, mere presence, the courage to keep living and face a new day, even unseen, even uncelebrated, is the silent mark of inner strength. You don't need to inspire anyone. You just need to keep going. Keep taking deep breaths even when your chest feels heavy. Keep going to work even when you're unsure if what you're doing is right. Keep treating others with kindness even as you struggle yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The mere act of being is a reward." We often forget this, caught in the standards of the outside world. But if you pause and look directly at what you've survived, the pain you've endured, the disappointments you've borne, the nights you stayed up alone, you'll realize you're no longer who you used to be. You've changed. You've stood back up more times than you can count. And you're still here. The truth is, there will be seasons when you're not growing, not succeeding, not even getting better by society's standards. But you're still going. You're still not giving up. And that by Stoic philosophy is victory. Not a victory over life, but over yourself. Over the part of you that wants to quit. Over the emotions that urge retreat. Over the fatigue whispering, "Don't try anymore." And if today you're still here, not perfect, not positive, just present, then you've won an invisible battle many will never see. Stoicism teaches us, never dismiss the small things. Sitting up once, washing your face, a full meal, a gentle gaze. All are signs of endurance. When you make it through a bad day without breaking anything, without hurting anyone, without betraying yourself, you are living with dignity. And dignity, according to Marcus Aurelius, is what defines a human being. It needs no applause. It only needs to be held firm each day in silence. So if you've ever thought, "I haven't done enough, I haven't come far, I'm not special," stop for a moment. Ask yourself, but am I still here? And if the answer is yes, then you are winning in a way the world may never recognize, but your soul deeply understands. 2. True success needs no applause. We've grown used to measuring our worth by things that can be counted: salary, reputation, followers, praise. Since childhood, we've been taught that success means standing on a stage, earning certificates, gaining public approval. But the Stoic sees it differently. To them, success requires no audience, no spotlight, no applause. True success happens in silence, where no one sees, in the moments where only you and your conscience are present. It's when you hold your dignity in anger, keep your compassion in the face of indifference, remain calm when insulted, and no one but you knows you did it. Marcus Aurelius once asked in Meditations, "Others don't see what you're doing, so what? Be content with living in accordance with reason." This is not just advice, it's liberation. When you no longer live to satisfy the gaze of others, you begin to live in alignment with who you really are. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need recognition. You only need to ask, did I live rightly today? Did I remain composed in chaos? Did I respond with reason rather than impulse? If the answer is yes, then you've succeeded even if no one claps for it. There are people who quietly carry pain without speaking of it. People who show up to work every day with a storm inside. People who choose silence over retaliation, forgiveness over resentment, kindness over cruelty. These actions never make it to social media, never earn them a stage, but they are the truest signs of inner strength. And they are what define real success, not by the world's standards, but by the soul's recognition. Success isn't how many people know your name, but whether you can live a day without betraying yourself, whether you can face hardship without letting it distort your character, whether you stand before an easy but wrong choice and take the harder road simply because it's right. And you don't need applause for that. Because the truth is, the deepest victories are always silent. Inner triumphs are not loud or flashy, but they endure, and no one can take them from you. If, each night, you can close your eyes and say, "Today I did nothing against my conscience," then you've won. If you can look at who you were a year ago and realize you've become calmer, more patient, more understanding than you are growing. Even if no one notices, even if no one celebrates it, even if there's no round of applause, that quiet inner maturity is the only thing you truly own. And the beauty is, once you begin to see it, you no longer need applause. You just keep going, quietly but resolutely. Because to the Stoic, that is true victory. 3. Every wound is a layer of armor. None of us pass through life without wounds. Some heal and leave scars. Others throb quietly, aching when old memories are touched. But whatever the wound, if you are still alive, still walking, then they've become part of your armor, forged you, made you wiser. The Stoic never tells you to run from pain. They don't say you must be strong by pretending everything is fine. They teach you to face your pain, not to be crushed by it, but to keep walking with it as part of who you are. Every pain that made you cry quietly at night, every betrayal, every failure, every hurt, they've left marks. And those marks are proof that you endured without breaking, that you shattered but mended, that you were soft but stood again. The Stoic does not see suffering as something to erase, but as the raw material for inner fortitude. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle is the way." Pain doesn't slow you if you learn to use it. It teaches you to go inward and find a strength you didn't know you had. When you've lost something you can't even name, you learn to cherish small things. When you've been insulted, you understand the value of kind words. When you've been rejected, you learn the worth of acceptance. Each wound that opened inside you didn't just break you. It opened a door to deeper empathy, humility, and gratitude. You no longer see life through carefree eyes. You see it with eyes that once held tears, but now know how to smile. Stoicism reminds us that strength doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from the ability to rebuild after being knocked down. Each time you rise after hardship, you forge a new piece of armor. It's not shiny, and it doesn't make you cold or distant. It's the invisible armor made of awareness, of inner discipline, of choosing not to let pain dictate your behavior. It's when you choose silence over rage. Forgiveness not because they deserve peace, but because you do. You don't need to erase the past to move forward. You just need to face it as a part of your whole. The wounds aren't burdens if you learn to see them rightly. They are assets. They give you empathy, discernment, and the ability to read the sadness behind someone else's smile. More than that, they show you that you've become strong in a way no one needs to see. So if today you feel too wounded to go on, remember, it's those very wounds that shaped you. You don't need to erase them. Carry them like quiet armor, not to strike, but to protect your soul through the storms ahead. And when you do that, you're living as a Stoic lives, resilient, aware, and unmoved by the cruelty of life. 4. You don't need everything to know you're enough. We live in a world that constantly pushes the idea that having more is the only way to live right. More money, more fame, more friends, more opportunities, only then are you considered successful. But the more you chase that, the more empty you begin to feel. Because true fulfillment doesn't come from how much you possess, but from whether you recognize the value of what you already have. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't reject the good things in life, but they refused to become slaves to desire. They knew that if you can't feel grateful for a glass of clean water, even a lake won't make you feel full. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." True poverty doesn't lie outside, it lies within the mind. If you don't train your mind to see beauty in simplicity, no matter how far you travel, you'll always feel lost. A person can live in a small apartment without designer goods or a luxury car. Yet if they wake each morning grateful to breathe, to see the sunlight, to feel love, they are living in abundance. Meanwhile, someone with all the comforts but constantly complains, compares, and feels lacking lives in poverty of spirit and perception. Stoicism doesn't teach us to renounce everything, but to recognize what is truly essential. They practiced negative visualization, imagining the loss of something not to torment themselves, but to refresh their appreciation. When you imagine waking up and no longer hearing a loved one's voice, no longer seeing sunlight through the curtains, no longer brewing your morning coffee, you come to realize that the smallest, most ordinary things are often the most precious. And when you begin to treat the present as something that could vanish at any moment, you will feel full not because everything is perfect, but because you've awakened. There is a kind of wealth that can't be measured. It's the peace of not having to pretend to be someone else. It's the freedom of not needing the crowd's approval to feel worthy. It's when you look at yourself every flaw, every fear, every scar, and still say, "I am enough." Not because of what I've achieved, but because I am living honestly, learning, and continuing. And that alone is enough for me to respect myself. When you pause to take a deep breath, when you hear birdsong outside the window and don't feel the need to record it, when you smile on an ordinary day, that's when you touch a level of awareness few ever stop long enough to feel. You don't need everything to know you're enough. You just need to look closely at what you already have. A breath, a person beside you, a warm meal, a body that still moves, a mind that's still aware. And if you start from there, you'll realize it's not that you lack, it's that you forgot. Forgot that you've been enough all along, just hadn't paused to notice. 5. You're not weak, you're growing. There are seasons in life when you feel like you're slipping backwards. You get angry again, react too fast, say things that hurt, or fall back into old habits you thought you'd outgrown. That feeling can make you believe you're becoming weaker, that you're making no progress, that all your past efforts were meaningless. But that's just the mind's trap. The truth is, you're not weak, you're growing. And growth is not a straight upward line, but a spiral path where you return to the same place, only this time with a deeper insight, a broader view, and a steadier heart. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't expect perfection, nor did they long for a state free from mistakes, anger, or anxiety. They sought only genuine progress, slow, quiet, but real. And it's in these moments of regression that you truly see yourself what still unsettles you, what wounds remain unhealed, which reflexes still need refining. Seeing this is not failure, it's awakening. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you find yourself at fault, don't torment yourself. Return to reason as a sailor rights the course." That's all you need to do. No need to punish yourself, no need to despair. Just pause, reflect, and adjust. Sometimes, simply noticing that you're reacting that alone is the first step of transformation. Those who've never looked inward will never see when they're wrong, but you do. And that's proof you're on the right path. Inner growth doesn't come from never falling. It comes from rising faster, calmer, with less self-blame, and more wisdom each time. You learn to breathe before you speak in anger. You begin to pause before reacting on impulse. You start to ask questions before judging someone. That's not weakness, that's strength. True strength, born from self-knowledge and self-mastery. Stoicism teaches us that what matters is not never making mistakes, but how you respond after them. A mature person doesn't avoid their wrongs, nor do they punish themselves endlessly. They look at their mistakes as lessons not to judge, but to understand more deeply. And because of that, they become more forgiving first to themselves, then to others. So if today you feel less strong than you'd hoped, remember, fatigue, doubt, and pain are not signs of weakness. They are signs you are going inward. You are beginning to see emotional layers once ignored. You're learning to stay present with discomfort without rushing it away. And that, to a Stoic, is not a step backward. It's a quiet advance. The steady progress of a mind learning to guide itself. 6. Patience is strength. We live in a fast-paced world where everyone wants instant results, instant success, instant healing. Everything is driven by speed, fast learning, fast money, fast love, fast quitting. But to the Stoic, true inner strength doesn't come from speed, it comes from endurance. And at the root of that endurance is patience. Patience is not passive or weak. It's an active strength, quiet but unshakable. It's the ability to keep doing what's right even when results haven't arrived. It's the calm persistence unshaken by unmet expectations or passing discouragement. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, "Today, I will meet the foolish, the ungrateful, the deceitful." He didn't write this to be pessimistic, but to prepare for patience. He knew life isn't always fair, people aren't always kind, and growth is never a short path. But if we keep going without betraying our principles, then that steady persistence is itself a victory. Not speed, but consistency. Not noise, but truth. Stoics know that the most valuable things in life, wisdom, compassion, inner peace, take time to mature. Like a seed needing steady care, sunlight, and even stormy days, the soul requires repetition and quiet endurance to deepen. A calm response today might be the result of 100 past outbursts. A wise decision today may be shaped by dozens of past mistakes. But you only reach that if you don't give up too soon. Patience also teaches us to accept reality. You can't force time to move faster. You can't rush yourself through pain before you're ready. Some processes must be walked step by step, fully felt, and repeated until you finally see them with new eyes. When you're patient with yourself, you stop using harshness as a motivator and begin using compassion and honest observation. You know not every day is a strong day, but if you don't abandon the path, you're still moving forward. And when you extend that patience outward, you no longer get angry when someone reacts poorly, no longer rush to conclusions without understanding, no longer fall into despair when others don't change as you hoped. You understand that everyone is struggling in their own way, that every form of growth needs time, and every act of kindness needs space to take root. Patience is a silent kind of strength, but once you have it, you'll find the rush of the world no longer moves you. You walk at your own pace, steady, unhurried, unwavering. And that's what sets you apart. Because anyone can start, but only the patient can finish. And those who finish leave the deepest mark not on the world, but on their own soul. 7. It's okay if no one sees. We were raised in a world where achievement must come with recognition. Do well, and you should get a certificate. Endure quietly, and you deserve praise. Make an effort, and it should be acknowledged. That's why it's easy to feel lost and disappointed when you do the right thing and no one notices. When you try hard in silence and no one sees it. But to the Stoic, the value of an action is never lessened by the lack of witnesses. In fact, it's those things done quietly without praise, without reward, that reveal true inner strength and a deeply tempered soul. You don't need to prove to anyone that you've made it through pain. If you know it, that's enough. You don't need to post online that you've forgiven someone, that you chose silence over retaliation, that you remained calm in an infuriating moment. Those things don't need outside validation to matter. They mattered the moment you acted with reason, preserved your dignity, and stayed true to your principles. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Be content to live in accordance with reason, even if no one sees." That's not pride. That's freedom. When you begin to live with deeper purpose, you'll realize the most important things in life don't need to be photographed, shared, or approved. You read not to be praised as a learner, but because you want to understand yourself. You train your body not for photos online, but to honor a promise to yourself. You choose calm in an argument, not to appear noble, but because you know harmony matters more than victory. Stoicism believes true character cannot be bought with attention, but forged in the moments no one sees. Every time you choose what's right when no one's watching, you're building your true self. No certificate needed, no award, no name on a list. The strongest people are those who live by their values, even when it brings no immediate benefit. They don't wait for an audience to perform. They don't need a spotlight to live fully. They live as if someone is watching them at all times, and that someone is their own conscience. The more you grow, the more peace you'll find in not being known, not being mentioned, not being applauded. You'll come to understand that inner peace is worth far more than outer fame. When you let go of needing recognition, you'll feel lighter, clearer, and more grounded. You'll no longer adjust your actions to please others. You'll only adjust them to stay aligned with your own principles. And that's when you're truly living rightly. So if today you're trying and no one knows, enduring and no one understands, standing firm in silence in a world full of noise, place your hand on your heart and whisper, "I know." That's enough. Because the most meaningful validation doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from knowing you're living a life you're not ashamed of. And with that, it's okay if no one sees. 8. Calm is the greatest victory. In a world of constant reactions where people compete to respond, argue, take a stance, and speak up so they don't appear weak, the one who remains calm stands out. No shouting, no need to be right, no rush. They simply pause, observe, and choose to respond with clarity. And that calm, though it may not impress anyone immediately, is the clearest sign of a deep inner victory. To the Stoic, calmness isn't the absence of feeling. It's the result of having trained enough to not be ruled by feeling. They don't turn emotions off, but they don't let emotions drive. We often mistake strength for sharp comebacks, quick retaliation, or forceful reactions that demand respect. But real strength is knowing how to stay quiet when your heart is screaming. It's staying composed when misunderstood, provoked, or hurt. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, when offended, ask if what you're reacting to is truly harmful or just your ego flaring. That reminder helped him remain peaceful amid what he could not control. And it serves as a guide for all of us in a chaotic world. Calmness doesn't come from avoiding trials, but from learning to stay steady when they arrive. It's the outcome of 100 moments when you lost control, said something you regretted, or did something that haunted you. But each time, you learned more about yourself. You saw that impulsive reactions solve nothing, they only worsen situations and exhaust the soul. From there, you began to pause before reacting. You learned to breathe before speaking. You began to ask, is what I'm about to say really necessary? Will it bring me closer or farther from the person I want to become? The Stoic doesn't seek to control others. They train to control themselves. And when you master your own reaction, you command the space between stimulus and response, the space where all freedom and maturity begin. When someone insults you and you feel no need to strike back to prove anything, that's freedom. When life shakes you, but your voice stays steady, your eyes remain soft, your steps are firm, that's dignity. The greatest victory isn't winning arguments. It's not being pulled into arguments that don't matter. It's not proving you're right. It's realizing you no longer need to. It's not about controlling others. It's about not losing yourself amid their chaos. Calmness is a quiet power, but once you have it, you can't be easily shaken. 9. Just keep going. That's enough. Sometimes you feel tired because you haven't made as much progress as you hoped. You look around and others seem to be moving faster, doing better, standing stronger. You compare. You doubt yourself. You wonder if what you're doing even matters. But a Stoic would tell you one simple thing. Just keep going, that's enough. You don't have to outpace anyone. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't have to always be strong or certain. If you haven't quit, if you're still awake to your life, still adjusting, still learning from failure, still holding yourself back from reckless emotions, you've come farther than you realize. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't be distracted by what you can't control. Return to what you can do today with integrity and calm." He never asked you to shine or achieve something grand. He only reminded you that showing up each day and living by your principles is the only thing worth preserving. In the journey of the inner life, no one walks the same path, at the same pace, or with the same goal. Comparison is meaningless. What matters is, have you stayed on your path? Some days, just breathing is an effort. Some seasons, you may not grow, only protect your peace. And that's enough. You don't always need to grow, change, succeed, or break through. Sometimes maturity is simply learning to sit with yourself in stillness, to not give up, to not rush to judge yourself while things feel unclear, to know that if today you couldn't do much, there's still tomorrow. As long as you don't turn away from the path, you're still moving. Stoicism teaches that real progress isn't found in outcomes, but in the commitment to live your values each day, regardless of circumstance. When you keep reading, even if no one tests you, when you maintain discipline, even if no one reminds you, when you speak the truth, even if it's unpopular, you're showing a strength far greater than any visible achievement. You don't need anyone's approval. You only need to know that you're still walking slowly, uncertainly, but not turning back. And if someday you feel too small in this vast life, remember, a seed doesn't need to understand the whole forest to grow. It just needs to keep reaching for light each day. So do you. You don't need all the answers. You don't need to explain. You just need to keep going. No performance, no rush, no demand for instant results. Just keep the flame of will alive, even if it's small, and walk forward. In that silent persistence, your truest self is slowly, quietly being formed. And for that, just keep going, that's enough. 10. Every day you live with awareness is a victory. You may not realize it yet, but waking up each morning with the intention, I will be present today, that alone is a great victory. Not everyone lives with awareness. Many spend their whole lives swept away by habits, emotions, desires, and pressure. They react instead of choosing. They rush instead of observing. They follow the pace of life without ever pausing to ask, what truly matters? But you are different. You're beginning to learn how to pause. You're starting to ask questions before acting. You no longer live by impulse, but by conscious choice. And that is awakening a clear sign of inner triumph. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A healthy life is made of right actions step by step, moment by moment." That means if you are choosing to slow down and observe yourself, if you are learning to recognize your emotions before you speak, if you are trying to treat others kindly even while your heart feels overwhelmed, then you've already won. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be impressive. You just need to be fully present in each of your actions with integrity and clarity. Living with awareness isn't some lofty ideal. It's noticing each breath when anxiety rises. It's pausing for 3 seconds before answering in a heated conversation. It's realizing you're tired and choosing to rest instead of pushing through just to prove something. Awareness doesn't produce achievements the world can easily see, but it shapes a person of depth, stability, and humanity. And if you can maintain that day after day, you are laying down a foundation that nothing can shake. So if today you didn't accomplish anything grand, didn't hit any major goal, but you lived with awareness, didn't betray yourself, kept your heart clear and your mind still, then know that you've already won. And you can repeat that victory tomorrow and the day after and every day after that until awareness becomes your second nature. To the Stoic, that is the model of a life worth living. I used to think that success meant achieving something tangible, a good job, a stable relationship, or a perfect image in the eyes of others. But the more I lived, the more I realized that the quiet, unnoticed things carry far more weight. When I choose silence over anger, persistence without recognition, and forward motion despite emptiness, that's when I feel I'm truly growing. Not by society's standards, but by the standard within. And it's these small, unglamorous moments of mindful living that help me see I don't need to become anyone. I just need to return to myself piece by piece. And if today I keep going, stay true to my core values, and remain calm amid change, then that's a victory that needs no applause. If you found these reflections valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next episode. And always remember, you are winning each day by the quiet way you live true to yourself. That is enough. See you in the next video.